بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today we're looking at, inshallah, the issue of Nushra. And this is something in relation to what we have been covering the last couple of lessons in relation to magic, sorcery, fortune telling, and the likes. And here Shaykh Muhammad bin Abdul rahimahullah, he says what has been reported concerning An-Nushra. So the chapter in relation to Nushra, what is it, what's its ruling? And this is obviously connected to the chapter we did some weeks before on the issue of sorcery and magic. So Shaykh al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he mentions that Nushra here, linguistically, is derived from the word nashar, which means to separate. But here technically it's referring to spells that are performed for the one who's already been affected by magic. So somebody who's been affected by magic is mashur, magic being used to cure this person. And so it's used to eradicate or break the magic that he's already been or has already been done on him. Other scholars they define it differently, but this is the most common definition. For example, Hafiz ibn Jawzi rahimahullah likewise says that Nushra is curing the one who is affected by magic, and obviously by using the same or similar magic. And he says that no one is able to do that except one who knows magic. So this chapter now is in relation to this. Is it permissible to do this? Because we said in the weeks before, magic, the performance of magic is disbelief. And to be pleased with it and to be entertained by it is not permissible either. Someone is pleased with it, it's the same ruling as the one who is performing it. But here, because somebody has already been afflicted by magic, can it be used as a cure? Not intending to harm others, but to cure someone. And so here, the Shaykh is going to discuss this ruling. And Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions that the reason why this is important is because magic affects the one who has been affected in his body, intellect, and soul. So it gives him anxiety disorders, such that he would only feel safe with whoever gently approaches him. Sometimes he really manifests a psychological sickness, such that he has a high sense of aversion from the people. And at other times the illness could be just a mental illness. So spells have impacts on the body and soul. This is based on what we mentioned before, that sihr is haqiqi, it's real. So therefore it has a real effect and a real impact on somebody. And it's not something which is khiyali. It's not imaginary or fascinations or something in the mind. So now when he brings this chapter, the Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, the author, is going to prove that it's impermissible. The takeaway of the chapter is that it's impermissible to do this. And he brings forth a hadith from Jabir radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked about Nushra. So he said, it is among the deeds of the Satan. Hiya min amal al-shaytan. It is from the deeds of shaytan or Satan. And this hadith is reported by Ahmed. Shaykh al-Islam says, the author, that it's a good chain. Isnaduhu jayyid. Also Abu Dawud reported, and Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih and others, they authenticate this. Remember as well, Imam al-Albani authenticate this hadith, that is amongst the deeds of shaitan. Imam Ahmad was asked about it, and he replied that Ibn Mas'ud would dislike or disapprove all of it. So here, this is one of the strongest proofs to show that Nushra, using magic to cure someone who has already been afflicted by magic, is impermissible. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Here min amil al-shaytan." He called it from the action of shaitan, the deeds of the Satan. And we also know from what we mentioned before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't put our cure in that which He's made impermissible. So if this action of Nushra, using magic to cure someone who's already been affected by magic, was something that was needed, it wouldn't be a cure in Islam, for cures are not found when it's impermissible. Let her know what is an act of disbelief. And we mentioned the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَجْعَلُ شِفَاءَكُمْ فِي مَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. Allah doesn't put your cure in that which is prohibited upon you. So it's not an action of cure, it's actually the deed from the deeds of shaitan. So here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen mentions, it means it's from that which shaitan commands and inspires. So this is because the Satan, shaitan, orders immorality and inspires abominations to his friends. This is the kind of whispering he gives. This suffices to say that it is forbidden. It is even stronger than that because ascribing it to shaitan is more intense in showing how ugly and how much it must be avoided. And the point of reference, the shahid from this text, and it's indicated that it is prohibited, is not restricted to direct expression of prohibition or negation of permissibility. Rather, when the punishments are connected to particular actions, then it is evidence for prohibition. And then he continues by mentioning that Imam Ahmad reported with authentic chain narration, and so it's actually a sahih hadith, and Ibn Mas'ud disproved or disliked all of this. This is what Imam Ahmad said when asked about it. And so here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah mentioned that the statement that Ibn Mas'ud that he disliked it, the karahiyah here, it should not be understood just to mean something's makruh, the way that the latter scholars would understand it. And this is only a benefit when it comes to the issue of usul al-fiqh. He says that the word disapproval or makruh or karahiyah would be used in most cases by the earlier scholars to mean prohibition. And it will not be used for other than that except due to certain indicators. But the latter scholars used it only for preference. So do not think that the word makruh in the usage or the statements of the earlier scholars is similar to the latter scholars. So today when we say makruh, many of us, we understand by it something which is disliked to perform, but if you left it off, it's rewarding. But it's not haram in and of itself. But the earlier scholars, when they say makruh, they mean prohibited. Using the ayah, she quotes, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. All the way till the end, Allah says, كُلَّ ذَلِكَ كَانَ سَيِّئُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ مَكْرُوهًا. Means the subsequent verses, Allah concludes by saying all the bad aspects, all these bad aspects mentioned are hateful to your Lord, makruha. And from those things Allah is mentioning are sins and shirk. And so we can't say those are makruh in the latter sense. I mean, makruh means muharram, prohibited. So no doubt the dislike mentioned here means prohibition. So Surah Al-Isra, ayah 23 to 38. So Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu considered makruh, i.e. prohibited. Jabir reports, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, Allah's Messenger said it's an action of shaitan, so nushra is impermissible. But there's a narration now that comes next to Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah brings, which brings some confusion to some people, even though there is no confusion in it. It's a narration reported by Bukhari on the authority of Qatada rahimahullah, who said, I said to Ibn al-Musayyib, Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib rahimahullah, a man under a spell or one who is prevented from his wife, means he cannot have intimacy with her due to some magic, should it be broken, means the spell on him, or be removed? Means using nushra. Can we use nushra in the case of somebody who is under a spell or who is not able to approach his wife for intimacy because of this magic? He said there is no blame in that. La ba's. There's no harm or no blame in it. They only intend rectification by that. As for that which brings benefit, it is not forbidden. So this narration is reported by Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah as in a mu'allaq form. And Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih, he authenticates it in his checking or his annotation to Fath al-Majid, and it's actually authentic from him. But what is the meaning of Sa'id's statement? When he says there is no blame in that, they only intend rectification. So this creates somewhat of a confusion, because we just said earlier that's here min amal shaitan. And now Sa'id Musayyib, who is considered from the most knowledgeable of the tabi'een, he's saying it's permissible. So here, before we can explain it, he also brings Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, who said only a sorcerer breaks spells. It means only a sahir does nushra, which adds to the point that it's prohibited. Ibn al-Qayyim said, and nushra is breaking a spell from the one who is bewitched, the one who is affected by it. And it's of two types. One of them is breaking it with a spell like it. So now we see there's actually some detail. One form, he says, he used a spell to break a spell like it. So magic against a magic. And this is from the deeds of shaitan. And the Sayyid Ibn Hassan al-Basri is understood in this light. So the one breaking the spell and the patient being drawn near to shaitan through the likes of this is from his handiwork. The second type is the nushra that's legislated, which in reality is incantations, or ruqya, adhkar, or formulations, or ta'awud, seeking refuge and protection from Allah, using adwiya, permissible medicines, and dua. This is allowed. So this is actually what is the correct opinion, that nusra actually can be then understood as two types. And if we understand this way, then the statement of Sa'id is no problem. So nusra then can be understood as two types. One is the one that's mamnu'ah, the prohibited nusra. This is the one where we're actually speaking about. The one which Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to, hiya min amal al-shaytan, that is an action of shaitan. This is when you use magic to cure magic. This is impermissible. Because we know the ruling of magic. You can't use it as a cure. The second type is to use ruqya, legislated incantations, Quran, dua, permissible medicine to cure. This was referred to by some as nushra. And some ulama, when they talk about the linguistical meaning of nushra, they say it's a type of nushra. You can call it this. But it's not the prohibited type. This is a jaiza. This is a permissible one. So if we understand this, then what Sa'id said there, he's referring to which type? He's referring to the second type, not the first type. So if we do this, the ishkal, the issue is cleared. Because we know Sa'id from the scholars, right, of the students of Sahaba. He's not reporting. He's not going against their opinion and their knowledge, the knowledge he learned from them. So here, Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, when he mentions this, he discusses here that it can be divided into two, harmful and beneficial, just as we mentioned. And the harmful one is prohibited, and the beneficial one is permissible. The Shaykh refers to it as a type of sihr, if you want to use that term. And then he says this is a apparent meaning of what was reported from him. On the basis of this, our colleagues, the jurists, deduced and said it is allowed to break a spell with no spell due to pressing necessity. So some of the ulama understood Sa'id's statement to mean that you can use nusra in general, even if it be magic. Some of the ulama have understood it this way. But then the Shaykh says, some of the people of the knowledge stated that it's not permissible. And in reality, the statement of Sa'id here is not clear if he's talking about magic or not magic. And in any case, he said, in any case, if Ibn Musayyib and those above him, amongst those whose statements are not expressed as proofs, consider something permissible, it does not necessitate or necessarily mean that is allowed in Allah's ruling until it is referred to the Quran and Sunnah. So in reality, if he was saying that we can use it, and he was actually intending magic, then Sa'id's statement cannot be used as proof against the statement of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in reality, we can use that as proof. But we know what the dalil and evidence is that which is found in the book and the Sunnah. So if it's authentic from him, and then he was meaning this, then we would say Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified the issue. But if he's intended what he intended, we mean by Quran and recitation, ruqya, medicine, then it's permissible. And this is what many of the scholars, they try to understand from him. Such as Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh and al-Tawheed, Kitab At-Tawheed, he understands it the same. And likewise, Shaykh Abdul Qaadir Ibn Hassan al-Shaykh in Fath al-Majid, he understands the statement of Sa'id to mean this. So more than one scholar, they understand his statement not to mean that he was talking about magic. Rather, he said, Shaykh Abdul Qaadir al-Shaykh, that the statement of Ibn Musayyib is carried to mean a type of nusra which is not known to have in it magic. So in reality, he's not intending magic. And this is, wallahu a'lam, more sound. But we know Sa'id from the students of Sahaba, but also one who would not permit the magic and the use of it. But we know the severity of that issue. So in reality, the statement of Sa'id is not as evidence for using nusra. And sadly, some Muslims, they understand that it's permissible. And they try to use some of this as to confuse the people, saying it's a mas'ala khilafiyya. And the ulama said it's not like this. The tarjih is impermissible. It's not permissible to use magic to cure magic, and that's the strongest opinion. There's no open door And we mentioned last week the fabrication. Many people they circulate. The Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah permitted it, and this is a great lie against him. As his most senior students, Shaykh al-Rajihi, Shaykh Fawzan, others said he's never heard from ever such a fatwa was passed by him. And so, in reality, the conclusion of this issue is that nushra, magic to cure magic, is impermissible. As for the statement of Hassan here, remember correctly, it's actually not an authentic narration. Shaykh Muhammad Hizami mentioned not authentic that he said this. But nonetheless, we've already proven from the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, هي من عمل الشيطان. The nushra is from the action of shaitan, therefore it's not permissible. And so with that we note, as Muslims, that if somebody is affected by magic, how do they cure themselves? From that which is legislated in the Sharia, which is through ruqya shar'i, legislated ruqya shar'iyya, means they recite upon him the Quran and adhkar are reported, authentic, that the person also, he make dua to Allah, that he recite the Quran itself, and he may even use permissible medicines, right, to cure his body or his mind like this. This is how someone should cure themselves. As for going to the magician to find out different things about maybe how the magic was done, or where was the magic performed, the Shaykh Salih was asked about this. He said this is not allowed either. We can't refer to the magician to find information about how to cure the magic, even though we're not asking him to do it. And he also warned against, when asked about the issue of people using this, some du'at saying it's an issue of difference of opinion, that this reality is not said by one who has knowledge, and one who is not a student of knowledge, who say this to confuse the people, and to actually open the door for the practice of magic. We already mentioned before the ruling of magic and its actions. How can then someone come and say, well, in the dire case you can go and use magic to cure magic? So in summary, this is what this lesson is about. Well, it's not a very long lesson. And it builds upon what we've already been mentioning about the issue of magic and its ruling. And so with this, if you understood the lesson before about magic and its ruling, then this will obviously come as an extension of the impermissibility. Inshallah, with this much we'll end with this lesson, because the next chapter is about the issue of evil omens, superstitions, and it's a very long chapter, by which we'll end the first volume. So inshallah we'll read that bit next week, inshallah ta'ala, so as to not to prolong this lesson. If anyone has any questions on this lesson, inshallah they may ask.
So Mushra is breaking the spell, like someone you wish.
Exactly, by using another spell like it.
Okay. So by using
so magic and taking off magic.
So there's no way that like ruqya would fall under.
Exactly. So if we would say ruqya would be considered, if you use the term nushra, it can refer to these permissible types. Right? That's why the statement of Sa'id Musayyib can be understood to be the permissible nushra, which is ruqya, Quran. What we said that many ulama, when they talk about the issue of nushra, they mean by it magic, using magic to cure one who is bewitched. Yeah. Yes.
So, say if someone was, for example, say if someone had magic inflicted on them, and then they were going to two people at the same time, like one ruqya and the other one was, like say the magician. But say they didn't know there was a magician, and so say like every time you did ruqya, that person put like another thing on them, like another spell. Could you do one ruqya that would just like remove it all together, or do you just?
Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, sorry. After the person finds out and you don't go there, you just do one ruqya and it will fix everything, or?
Wallahu a'lam. Ruqya cures, we know this. Right? In terms of one or many, wallahu a'lam.
Yeah.
Shaykh knows better. Wallahu a'lam.
سيبطل. يعني wherever you come with sihr, shows you the generality that one session of ruqya, Allah answers the dua.
Yeah.
To be a cure for not only one spell but a number of spells. But it also could be a test that Allah may answer one dua, similar to our sicknesses and diseases.
Yeah.
Allah may remove from you a sickness and leave another. So it's turn back to the scenario of that person.
Okay. Thank you.
How about if it's instead of magic with magic, people use it in a way that's other than from the Quran and the Sunnah? Does that fall under prohibited or?
When it comes to ruqya, it must be the legislated ruqya. So the ruqya that's not legislated should not be used. We can't say that that's a type of impermissible ruqya or a type of nushra, because you're not using magic. But we say that type of ruqya is not the one that we should be going for. So things that have innovations and mukhalafat, we should do the ruqya that's legislated. And so therefore we said that's the one that's effective, that's the one that works. And of course with the condition someone has certainty when performing the ruqya. And the Qur'an has certainty, the person who's a patient has certainty in the cure of Allah. So there are ways, right? And we mentioned this earlier. Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen talked about how Fatiha cured. Sahaba read Fatiha and the man who got poisoned by the scorpion, and it cured. But we read Fatiha nowadays may not cure. Again, certainty and doing it the right way, following the Sunnah. This is the way it's done. But we can't say that's type of a nushra that's meaning by the magic for magic. We say that's a type of ruqya that's not legislated. So that should not be practiced.
I had a question. You know how this meme comes out in certain cartoons and right? So sometimes you can't tell if it clearly falls under magic, but they call it like fairy tales and stuff. Is that like magic too? Like certain stories, characters from Disney and other pixel art and stuff like that.
We spoke about before, like watching shows and movies and things that have magic in it. But of course, if someone sees something which is doubtful, he shouldn't be viewing it. We shouldn't be watching this in the first place. This is the first point. It's a waste of time. In there are a lot of prohibitions. But at the same time, we see something there where people are doing things of the extraordinary. And they're doing things that are not known. Again, and sometimes they try to trivialize it. Because we said, in our society today, they don't consider magic real. They say it's something that there's no proof for it. It's imagination, it's fun and games. It's not something real. So as a Muslim, we should take very big precaution. When we see anything that is doubtful, that looks as if it is, they do with magic, doing spells or giving people wishes and whatever it is and these things. And we shouldn't watch these things anyways. But the other things in it that are worse. Some of this even shows they have issue of aqidah in their beliefs, right, in there. So a Muslim shouldn't watch it anyway. And of course, he stays clear of anything of doubt, always. Inshallah, yeah.
Was there any scholars that did refrain from having an opinion about the show? Like what the same name?
Wallahu alam, I don't know.
What are the conditions to having your dua answered or accepted?
There are many, but some of those conditions, obviously somebody is making dua sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he doesn't become hasty in the supply, that the person is not making dua for that which is haram in and of itself, or to cut off the ties within dua. And so things of this are nature of the things that are necessary. Sending salah on Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dua while making dua, or praising Allah in the ministry. These are the things of the adab and the ways to make dua.
Do you send like the piece to the Prophet ﷺ before? Like, could you send it like with the beginning of the dua? Like
You can do beginning or end. From what I know, Allah, you can do both. And it's reported that you can do in the beginning or end. So these are the condition for dua to be raised. And again, somebody is making dua sincerely, picking the right times where it's munasib, appropriate, and suitable. So the person, he comes with this, alhamdulillah, there are some authorship someone can read about this etiquette. But it's very important that the person has sincerity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers and not impatience. Because even the dua of the one oppressed, وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ, it comes in dua, even after a time, Allah may answer. Allah will aid the person, even after it takes some time. But nowadays, you may say, I made dua, nothing happened. It's not like this. A person shouldn't be hasty. And shouldn't also doubt in Allah. And there are other things, but if you read, there are many, inshallah, works you read. But very important, someone has certainty. You must be certain that Allah will answer you.
Thank you.
Another thing, undoing the knots, does that fall into Mushra? Like undoing the knots. For example, the hadith about the well, where they found someone to comb and they did the knots. Do we say that's some form of Mushra?
They say linguistically they refer to that as a nushra, because the word nashara is used. So they say linguistic that's intended, but it's not the prohibited type. For breaking the magic, undoing it is permissible. For someone to find what it is, just to undo it. But it's not the type of prohibition, the word nushra intended by where the magic is used to do magic. But they use that the hadith as an example for the word nushra being used linguistically as something to undo and to break and let go. But the ulama say you can undo magic. We find you destroy it, and that's how it's done. So if someone knows where it is or how it's done. Inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.